Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's Falcon here again for another tier list based video. And today we are going to be doing another Soul Calibur 6 tier list. And this time it's going to be a week strong tier list. And I guess we can just get right into it. This game, Soul Calibur 6, in case you guys don't know, is very balanced. This game is... anyone can win in Soul Calibur 6. You could play any character in this game, and you can win. In this game, you don't have to play the top tiers, like in Street Fighter or in Tekken, to get victories. In this game, it's it's much more rich. You see plenty of characters in pro-level play. The game is that balanced, and they did a very good job balancing the characters. And just to let you guys know, this tier list is from after the patches that's been coming out for this game. So, but the tiers are super close for this game. Honestly, I could just make 3 tiers. Characters that are slightly better than everyone else, characters that are, the mid tiers, basically, and characters that are slightly worse. That's basically how it is. There's no, like, okay, this character is broken, or this character is beyond useless. Everyone is usable in this game, even the worst characters in the game. So, take that into consideration when I talk about all the characters. Now, I am going to be going in okay detail. I don't know every single character 100%, but I think I'm still very confident on where I put my characters and where they should be, in my personal opinion. So, excuse me, let's get started. So let's start with S tier. So S tier, we've got Amy, Zasalamel, and Raphael. Amy overall is just very all-around. She has a very all-around toolkit. She has safe launchers. She has great mix-ups. She has great GIs. She has great Oki, great damage, great loads. I don't know if I said that already. She has an I-10 vertical in her 6B, one of the best I-10s in the game, in my opinion, along with Raphael's 6B. They both share this move, and it can lead to mix-ups on hit. She's just overall very all-around. She's very versatile. But that's not really what gets her in S tier. The main reason why she's in S tier, and why I think she's the best character in the game still, is the roses. Red and white roses. More specifically, the red roses. The thing with getting roses in this game, and if you guys play this game or play Amy or play Soul Calibur in general, you know what I'm talking about. Once you get 4 red roses, Amy just turns kind of brain dead. She has 4 AA, which is one of the best lows in the game. Even though that did get a damage nerf, it's still very good. You have crazy damage. Her damage goes through the roof when she gets red roses. And overall, a decent amount of her tools get better. And the thing is that it is so ridiculously easy to get roses in this game. In Soul Calibur 4, it was a lot harder to get roses. But in this game, they've just numbed everyone down. And they just made them super strong and relatively easy to pick up. So it's relatively easy to pick up Amy and get those roses and become a super brain-dead powerful character. And then when she gets all roses, all white and red roses, she's easily the best character in the game. Again, crazy damage. All of her guard impacts turn into resist impacts, which is just ridiculously crazy. Her pressure and mix-ups are very good. She has a great defensive game. She has some of the best lows in the game. Safe launcher. She's overall just, once she gets all roses, she's easily the best character in the game. Without the roses, I think that she'd probably be around A+ or A. But with the roses, it just really pushes her up. And you also have to take into consideration, again, they're very easy to get. They're very easy to get, roses, which is just crazy. And her critical edge is whatever. It's nothing special. Outside of when you get all roses, it does more damage. Her soul attack is whatever, and her soul charge is also, it's pretty good. But again, it's nothing too crazy. So, she doesn't have the best meter stuff, but she doesn't really need that. If she had good meter control, this character you'd see her quite a bit. But yeah, her soul charge stuff is nothing too crazy, even though 4AA does become safe on block, especially when you have all roses, or red roses, that move becomes safe. And she overall does have some decent stuff in soul charge. But yeah, overall, this character is incredibly good. And she's a lot easier in this game compared to Soul Calibur 4. Next up, we got Zasalamel. Zasalamel, I think, is just also a character that shouldn't have been buffed. This character was buffed in the recent patch. I don't know why. This character, even before, was already one of the best characters in the game. He's super easy to play. You know, I put him on my scrub mode tier in my difficulty tiers. He's super easy to play. And god damn is he strong. I mean, you don't have to use a lot of moves to play Zasalamel well. I mean, he has some of the best space control in the game. He has great tracking. He has great reverse ring out options. He is the best character in the game when it comes to reverse ringing you out. He has multiple different ways of reverse ringing you out. And his damage, especially when he has curses, is through the roof good. I'm surprised they didn't even nerf that. And his critical edge is also super fucking dumb. His soul attack is whatever, and his soul charge is very good, and it's very simplistic to understand. Especially the A+B bubble he has, that move alone just is absolutely crazy. And he overall has some decent mix-ups. Overall, Zasalamel is just also super versatile. He has basically everything. You know what I mean? He's one of the most all-rounded characters in the game, and that's what makes him so good, and he's so easy to play. That's really what pushes him into S tier for me. You honestly don't even have to really be good to win with Zasalamel. And the main reason really why he is here is his space control. His frame data and his lows aren't the best. His lows get the job done, and his frame data is nothing crazy. He normally is minus when he does pull you in outside of 6AA. I know that one's plus, but all the other pull-ins I'm pretty sure are minus. But he controls space so well. You can't really sidestep against Zasalamel. He has some of the best horizontals in the game. So then you have to, since you can't step, you have to play more 2D. And then you're open up to his powerful mix-ups and his powerful horizontals. I just don't understand why this character was buffed. A good buff that they did give him was 4A+B actually becoming a useful move. That now gives a guaranteed 6k on hit for a curse. That's great. That's a good buff. That move's definitely a lot more useful now. Because before, that move was basically useless. But, yeah, I don't understand why they buffed him. And they basically nerfed a decent amount of everyone else. So I don't know why he wasn't nerfed. Because for how easy he is. But, you know what? I guess they always want to see Zasalamel on top. And they want to see more Zasalamel. I don't know. And then the final character in S tier, I got Raphael. Now, Raphael was nerfed a little bit in the patch. He did get some nerfs, which he kind of needed, but that's not stopping Raphael. That's not going to stop him from being a beast of a character. He's also pretty all-around. He has good stances, good mix-ups. Again, has an I-10 vertical, just like Amy does. He's very tricky because he has multiple ways of guard impacting you. He has great GIs. He has a good low in 1k. That low's really good. It low crushes. It's minus 14 on block, and it is minus 2 on hit. However, if let's say the Raphael player does 1k, and the opponent decides to down A afterwards, and if he does a 1k again, he'll jump over it because he low crushes, right? And the low also tracks well as well. And if let's say the opponent wants to AA after his 1k, then he can do 6B, which is 10 frames. And even though Raphael is minus 2, he'll win that trade. So even though 1k is minus 2 on hit, honestly, sometimes Raphael can continue his momentum, even though technically he's minus 2. I think that low is very good. It's a very good low, and it hits grounded too. And he also has good space control. He has some of the best whiff punishment in the game. That's where Raphael really shines. Corso 4B, that move alone as a whiff punish is insane. It has so much range, it's relatively fast, it's basically safe on block, and it does 1,000,000 damage on hit. That move is one of the best whiff punishers in the game. Now, it does take execution, and overall, Raphael is hard to play. You need great execution, but if you have the execution in the mind games, this character's crazy. Insanely good character. And his critical edge is pretty good. Good whiff punisher. His soul attack is whatever, and his soul charge is also pretty decent as well. You know, it gives him some more mix-ups to play with, and some more plus frames that he kind of lacked before. Even though he didn't really lack it. But yeah, Raphael, super good character. Even with the nerfs, he's still a powerhouse. And I think he should be strong, considering that he is a very difficult character. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with playing Raphael. And if you do well with Raphael, and if you have the execution, you're rewarded with a very powerful character. Now, we're going to get to the A+. And for the rest of this is not in any order. Like, I don't think it's Cervantes, then Seongmina, then Setsuka. This is just, again, I'm just putting characters in a tier. But for the S tier, I did put them in order. But for A+, I got Cervantes, Seongmina, Setsuka, Cassandra, Nightmare, and Xianghua. Now, let's start with Cervantes. Cervantes is overall, he's always been a very, very solid character. He is hard to play, takes execution, but if you have the execution, his damage is crazy. He hits like a truck. He also is one of the best whiff punishers in the game with Core Circle Back B, or I don't know what it's called. It's Core Circle Back B, fastest input. That move, if you guys play Soul Calibur, you know what I'm talking about. But that's one of the best whiff punishers in the game. He has also great space control with A6. That move alone is just so brain dead, so strong. 2A plus B is an amazing move. It lethal hits. K2, great low. He overall has pretty good lows in general. He has some pretty good mix-ups at the wall with his wall push throw. And yeah, overall, he's just again, very, very solid. Super solid character. Again, whiff punishes you from across the screen, does 1,000,000 damage, has good simple pokes. His critical art is great, good whiff punisher, does a lot of damage. His soul attack is good, and his soul charge is very good too. They did nerf A6BB. That move takes up more meter, and it's less pushback on block, but that move is still very good, because that move is locked behind A6, which already is a fantastic move on its own. But yeah, overall, his soul charge is very, very good too. And yeah, so he has great meter stuff as well. So, yeah, Cervantes is a pretty nasty character. Very nasty. Next, we have Seongmina. This was a character that also did get some noticeable nerfs. Full crouch 1KK. That was probably one of her biggest nerfs. The first kick doesn't knock down a normal hit anymore. Thank God, because that move was just obnoxious. But now, if you want to knock down on that mix-up, on that sweep she has, you have to commit to the whole thing. So they can't just do 1K and just use it as a mix-up anymore. You have to do the full thing, because it will no longer knock down a normal hit. That's a big nerf to her full crouch mix-up, but it was so obnoxious. I complained about it. It needed to be nerfed. So they nerfed it. And also, 4-4A, that move is safer on block, but that move is a lot slower. That's one of her best, that was one of her better lethal hits. So, it's not as useful anymore because it's going to be easier to see, but it's still usable. But other than those two nerfs, they did buff a low that previously wasn't so good in 2B plus K. That low got buffed, and it's actually a much better low now. So, they nerfed some of her more ridiculous lows and buffed a more kind of a useless low. It's a much more usable now. But overall, this character is still incredibly strong. Super good. Still has an amazing full crouch mix-up. Her range and tracking is some of the best in the game. 2-2B, even though they nerfed that move again, that move is still obnoxious. 6A, 1B, 6B, 6B hold, 3A, she just overall has so many stupid long range attacks. Now, she can be rushed down during pressure at up close. She's not the best character up close. She does have a 12 frame down A, which is good, but it's less plus on hit now. They did nerf that. Thank God, because she doesn't really need a close range good down A. So air downing isn't the best anymore. It can't set up a full crouch mix-up anymore. But it is still something, because when she is at close range, she can choke a little bit. She does have some algae eyes, but they're a little bit slow, and they're not super consistent. So yeah, she can be rushed down, but once she's at that range, she's basically a joke. And she also has disgusting Oki. Her Oki's fucking nasty. And she has amazing ring out potential as well. I forgot to mention that. And she has a backwards ring out and 1A hold. Kind of like what Keelik has. They both have the same move. Even though Seungmin is a much better. And her critical edge is good. It can be used in combos, can be used as a punisher. It's overall good critical edge. Her soul attack can set up a full crouch mix-up on hit. That's good. That's pretty good, even though it is a little slow. And her soul charge is dumb. They didn't really nerf the soul charge a whole lot. Her soul charge is insane for what this character does. It just makes her better than what she was already good at. But even when she didn't have the soul charge, the character was still pretty obnoxious. And with the soul charge, 6A and 1B become break attacks. And her full crouch mix-up becomes scarier. Yeah, this character is crazy. And she's pretty fucking nasty. Now, you can't make too many mistakes with Seungmin, or you can lose. If you're playing really well, though, this character is basically a joke. And then we have Seska. Seska did get some decent damage nerfs in the most recent patch, but I don't think that was enough to propel her down to A-. I still think this character is super good. She still has a very good counter game. She has a safe launcher. Her damage, especially when she gets the counter, is insane. 4/4 B plus K as a 12-frame punish. Oh my fucking lord, that's crazy. She overall has pretty decent space control with 6XA and 6XB. Great already. And she's also a lot easier to play in this game because you don't actually have to do her just frames in this game to like in Soul Calibur 4 and Soul Calibur 5, you had to do the just frames to get her really good stuff going. But now, they gave her easy inputs to a lot of her just frame attacks. However, if you do those, you will sacrifice a little bit of meter, which is a big deal to me. And they also, and it's less damage. But so good players will still do the just frames because you'll get more damage and more, you won't sacrifice your meter. And her meter stuff is overall very good. Her critical edge is kind of whatever. Her soul attack can actually lethal hit, which is pretty good, and it's used in combos. It's a great soul attack. And her soul charge is pretty crazy in my opinion, because you get even more disgusting combos with her soul charge, and she has a pretty disgusting 50-50 mix-up in 1 AAA, soul charge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know what I'm talking about, mixed up with her mids. And the damage on the 1A and soul charge, it's almost like a mini combo. It's pretty nasty, even though it is punishable. It's actually quite punishable. But overall, even with some of the nerfs she got, I still think she's a very, very good character. Very good character. Absolutely. And also, she has a very unique thing where if, let's say, you get a certain amount of hits or a certain amount of counter hits or whiff punishes, they buff certain attacks. And the moves that they buff were already good moves. Like, they buff the moves out of Ring of Heaven stance. If you just hit your opponent, those moves become better. I think if you get a few whiff punishes, 4/4 B plus K becomes almost broken. It hits from across the stage, basically, knocks down a normal hit, and does more damage. And I think if you get a few counter hits, then 6A plus B, or that umbrella move she does, that does more damage. So that move becomes better. So the moves that were already good get even better. So yeah, overall, even with the nerfs, I still think Seska is very good. Very powerful character. And next we have Cassandra. I think Cassandra is still a great character. Now this is the character that she's one of the characters that got nerfed pretty decently. They nerfed her a bit in the frame department because her frames were pretty fucking ridiculous. But what really hurt her was the damage department. They really nerfed her damage, which Big deal. Her damage was nerfed, and her frames were nerfed. With that being said, that stuff was pretty obnoxious, because her close range shit and her damage, she hit like a freaking truck if she hits you, if she touches you, and she just bull rushes you at close range. So I could see some people complaining about that, so they did tone it down. But she is still a great character. She still pressures you like crazy. She still does good damage, even though it's noticeably weaker. Her Divine Force is very powerful. 6B A plus B is still a very good move, even though that move got a damage nerf. Yeah, she's overall still very good. She does have some range issues, and she is a little bit linear. But when she gets going, this character is nuts. Her critical edge is good. It's a good whiff punisher, and when you're in Divine Force, it does more damage and it looks cooler. Her soul attack is whatever, but her soul charge is really nasty. She got a nasty soul charge. She has one of the best soul charges in the game. That was barely touched. Even though, of course, Circle Back A did get a damage nerf, which it kind of needed. But yeah, still a great character. I still think she's A+ tier. Some people think she's A-, but I don't think so. I still think she's a great character. Next, we have good old Nightmare. And Nightmare, originally before the patches that came out, I put Nightmare in B+ tier. He was still good, but had some glaring weaknesses. And the thing with Nightmare was, one, he lacks an I-12, which even now he still lacks an I-12. And he was just super slow, super sluggish. He had just very wacky frame data. He hits like a fucking truck. He hits like a monster. Like, anytime Nightmare swings at you, it's gonna hurt if it hits you. He does a lot of damage. But most characters could just rush him down because, again, he had terrible frame data. And he could use some of his armor moves, but if the opponent was doing a lot of lows, that wouldn't work. Even though his armor is pretty annoying. And just, his Night Terror just didn't really save him. Night Terror is pretty fucking obnoxious. And it is very easy to get. But without Night Terror, this character is just, he's not a good character. But this was before the patch. Now, after the patch, this character got some big buffs. And these are two very noticeable buffs that I see with him. One is that they buffed AGA. That move is now +2 on block instead of 0. And holy shit, is that going to help Nightmare. Because previously, it was very rare for Nightmare to become plus on block. Very rare. He never was plus, basically. And even if he was, again, his fastest move was 14 frames. From both standing and crouching. He just had very bad frames, right? So AGA now turning +2, and how good that move is. AGA is crazy. That move is just super crazy good now. But now him getting +2 was a big deal, because now he can now actually continue his momentum. And also his crouch throw, core circle forward A plus G, that the speed on that crouch grab goes from 14 frames to 12 frames. That's another great buff for him, because now, if let's say he blocks lows that are -12, and if you have the execution for it, he'll be able to grab you. He'll throw you across the screen. I mean, not across the screen, but he'll throw you, and you'll have Night Terror. That's a big deal as well. Big deal. And those two buffs alone really pumped them up the tier list. Those two changes alone. This is really going to help Nightmare. And don't be surprised if you see more Nightmare players. You're going to see him a lot more now because of these changes. And also his critical edge, if used correctly, it's very good. And it immediately gives you Night Terror afterwards, which is always nice. And again, it's very easy for him to get Night Terror. And once he's in Night Terror or Soul Charge, you got to really be careful. Because this character is nuts in Soul Charge or Night Terror. I call it Night Terror. He's crazy. And he has very good ring out potential as well. Very good ring out potential. And he can reverse ring you out as well with his crouching backflip he has. And he also has pretty good whiff punishment as well. Now, he still has his weaknesses. Again, not having an I-12 is a big deal. He still has problems with people OSing him because 3A is just, it's very unsafe. But I still think that this character is incredibly good right now. And again, don't be surprised if you see him a lot more. Again, still has his weaknesses. And next we have Xianghua. Xianghua was a character that I originally put in A-, the lower tier of A-. And I put her up in A+ because not really for the buffs she got. She didn't get any crazy, super crazy, insane buffs. But the reason why she's up here is that a lot of her worst matchups have gotten weaker. Have gotten a lot weaker for her, which really helps Xianghua because she did have some pretty nightmarish matchups. Same thing with Nightmare. They got nerfed, so Nightmare also becomes better in that way. That's another thing I take into consideration with some of the characters, that if some of their worst matchups are weaker, that helps Xianghua, a character like Xianghua, or a character like Nightmare. So that's one of the reasons why I put her up in A+. And you have to play very different against Xianghua. Xianghua is very hard to play because, you know, she has some very complicated stuff. But if you are a good Xianghua player, the opponent really has to... You limit your opponent's options because she has amazing auto GIs, which all lethal hit. She's super safe. She has safe launchers, some of the best launchers in the game. Her Oki is ridiculously good. She has some decent mix-ups, even though you can be swatted out of them if the opponent knows. But if they don't know, she has decent mix-ups. And her auto GIs really make it so where the opponent has to stop mashing. You can't just simply mash against a Xianghua, because if they know what they're doing, they'll auto GI your ass, and you wanna know what's gonna happen? You're gonna get lethal hit. Now, all of her lethal hits, though, which is the problem, they're all a read-based lethal hit. She just doesn't have this move that you can just throw out and you can get a lethal hit if you're lucky. Like, every lethal hit that Xianghua does have is a read-based lethal hit. So you have to keep that in consideration. But if you get the read, it's going to hurt. She has pretty good damage. And again, her Oki's disgusting. And again, super safe character. And she just really makes you play different, because you can't use your super annoying strings anymore because she'll be able to auto-GI them every time. Keep this in mind when you're fighting against a Xianghua player. And her critical edge also is 12 frames. That's also a huge deal. That means she'll be able to punish minus 12 moves with a CE. And if she's doing that, will you be tempted to use those moves? You'll probably stop doing those moves if she has meter. Now, one of her biggest weaknesses, though, is that she has a terrible soul charge. Her soul charge sucks. If the opponent knows a soul charge, there is nothing that Xianghua has in soul charge that's scary. Nothing. They really do need to buff her soul charge. And her soul attack's whatever, too. But her critical edge is really where she shines. But yeah, her soul charge is very weak. However, I still think right now Xianghua is really, really exceptionally solid. And there's nothing wrong with playing Xianghua right now, especially considering that most of the other characters have gotten weaker. And now we're going to get into the A- tier. So the A- tier, it's basically the mid tier of the game. These characters are still very, very good characters, but they're just, again, they're noticeably weaker. They have more noticeable weaknesses. So we've got Ivy, Siegfried, 2B, Geralt, Talon, Tira, Hilda, Yoshi, Sophie, and Astaroth. So let's begin. So Ivy was honestly a character I really wanted to move up to A+, because this character's fucking annoying. I fucking hate fighting this character. She has super good space control. Her command grabs, even though they were nerfed, still some of the best in the game. Command grabs. She has some decent close range stuff. She has a great soul attack, a really annoying soul charge. And yeah, this character can just really, this character is a scrub killer basically. But you have to take into consideration, once you really get into an Ivy's face and you really start going at her, there just isn't so much that Ivy can really do the threat with. Like, her down A is 16 frames. So it's 4 frames slower than your typical down A. That's a big deal. And her AA can be ducked on block, even though she does have an AK. Keep that in mind. Her BB is also very sluggish. She's overall gets much more sluggish at close range. Her C is an auto GI, But if the opponent knows what's going on, it's not the best super in the world. But once she gets out there, I'm keeping you out, this character is ridiculous. And she has amazing mix-ups as well. Like her 2-2K low sweep, even though it is launch punishable, it's still a pretty decent move. And she has a decent panic move in core circle back B. It high crushes and sidesteps. And it can put you in a mix-up on hit. Pretty good. But if you really are paying attention and if you know what you're doing, Ivy can struggle. She can, especially at close range. But when she's at far range, you don't want to be far against Ivy. That's where she wants you to be. It's where she wants you to be. So you don't want to be there against a good Ivy player. Siegfried. I still think Siegfried is also a great character. Now, this is a character that has been constantly getting nerfed, and they nerfed him again in this patch. Like, his two biggest nerfs was to his base hold B. That move doesn't track anymore to either side. But the biggest nerf that he got was to his 3A4. His kind of slap move that knocks down. That move has less pushback on block. And those two nerfs, more specifically the 3A4, that's a big deal. Because now he's going to have a weaker move to catch step duck. He is now much more vulnerable to OS, or step ducking. That was one of the few moves he had to really, really stop that, and it was very good. But since now it has less pushback and now is easier to punish, yeah, that's not very good. So, this character is still good. He still has some decent mix-ups. His range is still incredibly good. He still has some very, very, very good matchups. He has great damage in general. He overall is still good, but he is definitely very noticeably weaker. And his critical edge is actually very good. It's actually an amazing whiff punisher, and it's one of the few critical edges in the game to be safe on block, which is incredibly good. His soul attack can set up a 50-50 mix-up afterwards, and also his soul charge, it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. Oh shit, and by the way, with Ivy, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I forgot to mention with Ivy is that they nerfed one of her best moves in while standing B+K, or as people like to call it, the Christmas tree. That move was basically, it GI'd everything, and you could space it to make it safe on block. Originally, it was -16, but she could go backwards, retreat, and it was basically perfectly safe. So it was an amazing panic move at close range. But now that move was nerfed. It's -14, but you can now you can easily punish it now with a B or AA. So yeah, that move, that really did hurt Ivy, but it's still a good move, but it is very noticeably worse now. You can't just abuse it anymore. So thank God. But anyway, back on Siegfried. He's still a great character, but definitely noticeably weaker. 2B I think is really good right now. I think she got some very nice buffs in this patch. They have buffed some of her neutral tools, which she really needed. Her AGS stuff wasn't enough to carry the character, because before the patch, every single button that she did that was neutral, in the neutral, had awful frames, or was even punishable. So they buffed her neutral game a little bit, which is great, and they gave her some buffs to the AGS stuff. And it's great. That's great for 2B. She has amazing mix-ups. She has great range tools. Even though her neutral is still not great, it's definitely noticeably better. She does take risks with some of the stuff, but if you have all the right reads, then you're gonna be good to go. Her critical edge is nothing special. Her soul attack actually got a very big buff. It hits grounded now. Her soul attack, which was that's a big buff for her. So her soul attack is much better. It's a very good soul attack now. And her soul charge is crazy good. Better mix-ups, slightly better neutral. Just buffs the areas where she's already good at. The AGS stuff. That stuff becomes crazy in soul charge. So yeah, she still has weaknesses. She still doesn't have amazing frames. She is still very punishable if you know the matchup. But right now, I still think she is much better than she was previously. Absolutely. Next, we have Geralt. And Geralt is overall just an extremely solid fundamental character. Geralt is basically, there's not too much to say about him. He's basically the fundamental character of Soul Calibur. He kind of reminds me of Kazumi and Shaheen from Tekken, even though I don't think he's as good. But yeah, he's exceptionally solid. He has great pokes, great whiff punishment. His lows are pretty decent. He has good space control. Overall, just also quite all-rounded character. He has some decent damage. He has some unique stances and stuff with his 6A plus B. Very unique move in general. His his critical edge, my bad. His critical edge is pretty good. His soul attack is decent, and his soul charge is decent. So overall, mostly everything this character has is just solid. And he's also super easy to play. Very easy. And he doesn't have any super crazy bad matchups. He is very boring to play, but if you have the patience and the fundamentals, he's a great character. That's all I can really say about Geralt. Next we have Talim. I think Talim is pretty solid. I think she has great mix-ups. She has pretty decent whiff punishment. She overall has a lot of very annoying shit. She has her reversal edge cancels, which are pretty damn annoying to deal with. Her mirror stuff in general is crazy. She has an amazing critical edge. On block, you can cancel it into a stance, whatever stance you want. She overall has great combos, pretty good Oki, good fake kind of pressure. In her backward stance, she has an amazing whip punish and BB, does 1,000,000 damage. Her soul attack is pretty good, and her soul charge is super crazy good. Now, she does have range issues, and if you know how to deal with some of her strange stuff, she can be swatted out. And if you overall know the matchup, she definitely has much noticeable weaknesses, and she also has some very nightmarish matchups, especially against very long-range characters that can keep her away. She has problems there, but overall, I think this character is good. I think she's good. Next, we have Tira. Tira is also a very solid character. Quite all around. She's very unique, very hard to play. Her jolly frame data, though, I think is terrible. She does have some decent moves in 6B, 1B, 6B. That move is crazy good. She overall has very disgusting Oki. She has some decent lows. She has one of the best I-14 punishes in the game, but that's when she's in Gloomy stance. 3A plus B. That move did get a damage nerf, thank God, because that move just did ridiculous damage. She has pretty good whiff punishment, more specifically in Gloomy. And her frames get better in Gloomy. And she has full crouch, 3A? That low is stupidly good. And you had to also play very differently against Tira, because you don't want to turtle against a Tira, because she'll keep taunting at you and she'll keep swapping, and eventually she'll get in Dakota, where she becomes also pretty nasty. And did I mention her Oki was good too? I think I mentioned that. And she has some pretty good range on some of her attacks. Now, again, in Jolly, you have to play differently. You have to be more turly because her frame data and offense is so trash. But in Gloomy, you can be a lot more aggressive in Gloomy because she has better frames. They're overall very different, but they're very unique. And it is hard to understand it, but if you can understand it, you have a good character. Her critical edge is good with Punisher. Her soul attack can set up a mix-up afterwards, which is great soul attack. And her soul charge is pretty solid too. So she has some good meter stuff as well. But yeah, I think she's overall, again, very solid, very well-rounded kit in general. And next we have Hilda. Hilda got some really nice buffs this update. Previously, she was in the B+ tier, but after the buffs that she did get, more specifically in her soul charge, that really helped her, because the thing with Hilda is she has really nasty Oki. Her Oki and combos are very nasty. But the problem is that it was very hard to set that stuff up because most of her launchers were very slow and linear. But they pay attention to that, and they've buffed it a little bit. And she overall has a very good rounded kit as well. She has long range, close range, She has her stance stuff with her sword and her spear. She has some decent whiff punishers. She overall is also a pretty well-rounded kid as well. And again, they gave her some really nice buffs that she really needed. Again, more specifically in her soul charge. Her soul charge is a lot more scarier now. Her soul attack is decent. And her critical edge is okay too. I don't know a shitload about this character, but I do know that she got some very nice buffs, and she's much better than she was in the previous patch. So I decided to move her up a tier just because of the buffs. Yoshi. I think Yoshi is also really good. This is another character where you have to play very differently against him. You can't just do unsafe moves all the time because he'll do 4B and he can steal some of your meter to his own. He has a pretty good neutral. They gave him some new moves, which was nice. New ways to steal your meter. His Soul Siphon became a lethal hit, which is very, very unique. I didn't think they would ever do that, but that's pretty cool. His Oki is disgusting. He has a very good full crouch mix-up and his full crouch 3K. That move can fucking suck it. I hate that move. He overall has really good mix-ups. His stances are pretty good. He's pretty gimmicky. He has very good ring out potential. He's the second best character when it comes to reverse ringing you out, just behind Zasalamel. Again, has a pretty solid neutral tools. And again, has a very well-rounded kit as well. Let's see here. His Soul Tag is one of the better ones in the game. Again, gets up a 50-50 mix-up. His Soul Charge gives him some of his Brave Edge attacks, and gives him some other mix-ups. Soul Charge is pretty decent too. And his Critical Edge is an amazing whiff punisher from across the stage. And if the opponent doesn't know how to deal with it, it's plus on block. So yeah, very all-rounded character. And he got some interesting tools. Sophie. I still think Sophie is a great character, but previously I put her in the A+ tier. And the reason why I moved her down was for a reason I'm going to mention in a second. But overall, she's still great. She has amazing space control. She has some of the best block punishment in the game with her stab, if you have the execution for it. She does take some execution, but if you have it, super good punishment. She has very good Oki. Her post-GI stuff is very good, with 1k hold. And she is overall, outside the execution, very simple to understand. But the problem with Sophie, and the reason why I moved her down, was to the nerf that she got to her Soul Charge. Her Soul Charge previously was one of the best in the game. And again, it was so simple to understand. Her Critical Edge was alright. It was a horizontal, which is always nice, so you can't sidestep it. But her Soul Attack and Soul Charge really shined. Her Soul Attack was easily the best in the game. That was nerfed, but it's still easily one of the best. It's still an insane Soul Charge. And her Soul Charge was also crazy. However, she got some pretty big nerfs to her Soul Charge. More specifically, in Corsical Forward A+B, that move does use up more meter now. Very noticeable, but that's not the reason why I moved her down. The reason why I moved her down was in the most recent update. Because now, if you have meter, you can now RI the final hit of that move. And that is a big nerf. And now it sacrifices more damage. So that move, if you know, that move's basically useless now. That's a huge nerf. And they nerfed her on long range stab as well. But that nerf alone on Corsical Forward A+B, that's a big deal. First, now it uses more meter, and now you can now RI the final hit if you have meter. So because of that nerf, I had to drop her down to A-. But she's still good in Soul Charge. She's still good. But she's noticeably weaker. Much noticeably weaker. They really destroyed that move. But other than that, she's still a great character. Still amazing space control. Again, block punishment's crazy. She's still overall a good character. And then the final character we have in A-, I have Astaroth. Astaroth originally was in the B- tier. He was one of the worst characters in the game in the previous update. But now, he got some big buffs. And there's 3 main buffs that they gave him that really helped him. And again, considering the fact that everyone else got a large chunk of his worst matchups got worse. So the first thing is his grabs. His grabs actually got 2 buffs. First of all, if the opponent previously breaks his grabs 5 times, 6K, one of his best moves, becomes a lethal hit. That was a big deal. But now they made it so where you only have to break 4 grabs for 6K to become a lethal hit. That's a big deal. Because 6K, again, is one of his best tools. It's an amazing high crush. It's a knee, has good range. It's only minus 12. On counter hit, it does some good shit on counter hit, and now it's going to become a lethal hit after 4 throw breaks. And you're going to be looping these plus on 8 throw breaks over and over and over again. It's very annoying fighting an Astaroth that just keeps grabbing you. Because even if you break it, Astaroth is left at plus 8. And when he's at the wall, when you're back against the wall and you keep breaking grabs, he has insane mix-ups. Plus 8 right next to the opponent. His BA is a super dumb move. He overall has pretty good counter hit tools. He hits like a fucking truck. He has an I-12 compared to Nightmare. Nightmare doesn't have one. His 4A, it's pretty decent. Has some mix-ups afterwards. Again, his throws are crazy good. 6K is a great move. Bull Rush is super good. He has some good lethal hits. 2-2-B is a good move. Now, he is still a little bit sluggish. He doesn't have a down A. His down A is an actual low, but it's super slow and has terrible frames. So he still can be rushed down against very pressure-heavy characters. And he can't move as well since he's so fat. But, yeah, that's pretty good. And also his other 2 buffs. His grabs now also, not only that, but if the opponent decides to reversal edge on wake up, if Astaroth tries to grab you, previously he would get hit by the reversal edge and you have to guess the mix up. But now you can actually block in time. You can block the reversal edge. And not only that, but you can now RI the reversal edge. So let's say you try to grab someone and they reversal edge you, you can now RI it or block it in time. So previously you had to respect the opponent on wake up because they could reversal edge you, but you no longer have to do that. So yeah, his grabs got even better. So that's huge. And also he got a new lethal hit in 4-4K. If you step a mid-level attack in a string, that becomes a lethal hit, which is also pretty good. That's a pretty good buff. But yeah, overall, I think Astaroth is much, much better now. You can't really go wrong with playing Astaroth now. His meter stuff is also decent. His soul attack is okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. His soul charge is something you do have to respect. It's a pretty solid soul charge, and if you don't know what you're doing, he'll kill you. And his critical edge is an unseeable grab. It can be react to if you're really, really expecting it, but if you don't expect it, it's a very good critical edge. And that's really it with Astaroth. And that covers the A- tier. So we have a few more characters left. We first have the B+ tier. So here we have Taki, Aswell, Grow, Kilik, Voldo, and Harumaru. So let's start with Taki. I still think Taki is also a great character. I think that they did buff her a little bit. Previously, I thought she was lower. I thought she sucked. But I think she's better. She has some decent mix-ups. She has some pretty good pressure, especially in Soul Charge. Her punishment, though, is some of the best in the game. A6 Just Frame alone is insane. Her possession stance, if the opponent isn't swatting it out, is really good. And yeah, she's overall pretty solid. However, again, the possession stance can be swatted out by most of her transitions. Her combo damage is quite low, but her bombs are very good. Her A+B bombs, she has one of the best A+Bs in the game. It's a very, very good A+B. And she overall has some very tricky stuff. She has some good lows, decent lows. Let's see here. Her soul charge is good. It gives her some more offense. Her critical art is really good. Super long range and only -12 on block. That's good. And her soul attack is decent too. And her 668 plus B, that move, they did nerf that move a little bit, but that move was crazy in the previous patch. But now you can they made it slightly easier to hit Taki if the opponent's charging the second hit. But 668 plus B, that move just really, really helped Taki. Even though that move is slightly weaker, that's still a crazy button. And that move alone really does keep her really, really solid. Again, still has noticeable weaknesses, but I still think Taki is a very solid character. Can't go wrong with playing the ninja. As well, this is going to be confusing to some people, and same with me. This character's fucking annoying. I hate fighting Aswells. You know, he has a lot of very annoying moves. He has good mix-ups. He has crazy range. And if you don't know what stance he's in, you're like guessing for your life. He has a pretty good full crouch mix-up, especially when he's more in spear stance. His axe stuff is really good. He has some good axe tools. And his soul charge, he has everything basically at once. And he has 668 plus B, 6A plus B, up A plus B. Those moves are also very good as well. So his soul charge is really good too. And he also has a pretty good soul attack. And his super is alright as well. So he has really good meter stuff. However, this character just constantly keeps getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. And I've played Aswell recently, and I really noticed with him, he is super sluggish, and he's very slow. He has some good mix-ups, and some decent pressure if you know what you're doing, but the problem I have with Aswell is he basically can't block punish shit. Unless if he's in sword stance. And most of the time, you're not in sword stance. Most of the time, you're in axe stance, where you have the axe low and the 3B. He is relatively simple to play if you know what stances you're in, but if you don't know, he can be a lot harder to use. And again, if he's not in sword stance, he's not going to block punish you. He's so slow when he's not in sword stance, because AB is much slower. Now, when you're in soul charge, you'll be able to punish, but without AB punishing, that's a big problem. They also did nerf his soul charge quite a bit, which kind of needed, but yeah, it's noticeable. I still think Aswell is a great character, and you could definitely argue him being an A-, but because of all the nerfs he's been getting, and the fact that if you're not in sword stance, you can't really punish shit, and he's just very sluggish in general when he's not in any stance, this character can be rushed down a little bit. So if you know what you're doing, you can beat Aswell. It's absolutely possible. But just, keep this in mind with Aswell, if you know the matchup. Grow. I think Grow, he did get some nice buffs in the patch, but his weaknesses are kind of still there. I think this character is kind of whatever outside of Soul Charge. When this guy's in Soul Charge, he is one of the best Soul Charges in the game. It's very gimmicky, but it's very fun to use. He has a crazy good Soul Charge. His Soul Attack is mainly used in combos, and his Critical Edge is whatever as well. But his Soul Charge is where he really shines. But without Soul Charge, I just find this character kind of whatever. He is very simple to play, but he just, outside of Soul Charge, he doesn't specialize in anything. He does have some good lethal hits. He has some of the better lethal hits in the game. He has some decent mix-ups, but on block, especially when you're fighting against a character who has a 10-frame AA or 6B, that'll be able to swat him out every time, Grow can have serious problems. And there's just, if you know the matchup, I just don't see this character as super scary. There's just nothing too crazy he does that's going to really scare me. And again, the Soul Charge, if you lab it, if you know what you're doing, it's possible to beat him even in Soul Charge. Even though it's very unique, and it is still very powerful. It's still not easy to deal with. Next we have Kilik. Kilik, he's okay, but again, he's not amazing. He's also a very fundamental kind of character, kind of like with Geralt. You have to play very simplistic with him. You have to play very boring. Again, he's a very boring character to play. I've played Kilik. I play a little bit of Kilik. He's very boring to play. He has a really good while standing B, though. That's one of his best moves. And if he didn't have while standing B, this character would probably be in B-. The character would be awful. You have to play a very boring Soul Calibur with him. You can't go too crazy with him. Outside in Soul Charge, now his Soul Charge is pretty insane. His Soul Attack, again, can mainly be used in combos. And his Critical Edge normally isn't very good. It is safe, but it does basically no damage. But in Soul Charge, you can go a lot more wild, and he's a lot stronger in Soul Charge. But again, without Soul Charge, I just find this character also kind of like Grow, just very whatever. Again, it's not that he's a bad character. He's not bad. But just compared to everyone else in this game, he's just very underpowered compared to everyone else. And that's my biggest problem with Kilik. He's just very underpowered. They really need to give him some love and some buffs. Will they do it? I hope so. But even still, I just still don't find this character super threatening. He has some okay fundamental tools, but I just feel like there's just other characters in this game that I consider better. And next we have Voldo. Now Voldo, in the previous patch, he was considered to be the worst character in the game. And I think we all agreed on that. I thought he sucked in the previous patch. However, in the patches, he has been getting some pretty nice buffs. He got some buffs. His 2-2A is a lot better now. It knocks down on counter hit. That's a good buff. His 1K is a lot faster, and they've also buffed some of the things in his stance, his Mantis Crawl, which they basically destroyed that stance in Season 2. He has good mix-ups. He is very all-rounded. He has a very all-round kit. He has some good buttons. He has some good pokes. His punishment's decent. His 4K is an incredible launcher. High crushing safe launcher. Big, crazy good move. They buffed some of his buttons that were already pretty good. They buffed some of his stances. Again, I still think he's slightly weaker compared to everyone else. However, I think they're doing a good job buffing him, because he needed the buffs, and he's definitely noticeably better. His soul attack is decent. His Soul Charge I don't think is that good though. I think his Soul Charge is very gimmicky. If you know how to deal with it, his Soul Charge is very gimmicky, and you can beat everything basically. His Critical Edge, especially when he's in back turn, is very good. It's 12 frames in back turn. It's overall pretty good Critical Edge. And his Oki is very good. Good mix-ups, good Oki. He's overall pretty all-rounded. Pretty all-rounded character. Really solid. Excuse me. And the final character in B+, I've got Harumaru. Now Harumaru, I think Harumaru is also alright. But I was going to put him in B-, but I decided to move him up just because he's so unique and he has one of the best backsteps in the game, but his sidestep is not very good. He has some decent tools. He has 6xb, which is a great move. He has amazing whiff punishment overall. His damage, though, is a bit lacking. And overall with Harumaru, this is just another character that kind of reminds me of Kilik. He's just a bit underpowered right now. They gave him some nerfs that I don't feel he needed. Because previously, I would say he's higher in the B- tier or even in A-, but they nerfed him for some reason. Don't know why. He's basically this he's basically a 2D kind of Soul Calibur character. You know, that's kind of what they made him to be. He has some good 2D gimmicky stuff. He has a good whiff. He has, again, crazy whiff punishment. So he has some decent stuff, but other than that, and his backstep is crazy, but other than that, I just don't see this character as super scary, if you know the matchup. If you don't know the matchup, obviously you can get away with a lot of shit, but if you know the matchup, I just don't find this character super scary. He has some mix-ups as well, which is good. He has a DP, which is very interesting. He has a lot of interesting properties. His heavy slashes are very cool. His 10, he also has a 10 or 12 frame CE. I think it's in Soul Charge or when he's in a certain position. That's good. That's a good shit. His Soul Attack is very unique. His Soul Charge is okay. And his Critical Edge is okay. So his mirror stuff is okay-ish. But Rage Explosive is where he does shine a little bit better. But, yeah, other than that, I don't see this character as super scary. But again, he's not bad. I just think, kind of like Kilik, he's just slightly underpowered compared to everyone else. And now we're in the B- tier. This is going to be very interesting. So first up, we've got Mitsurugi. And holy fucking shit. What the fuck did they do to this character? This character is kind of like with Siegfried and Aswell. They just nerf. They've just been nerfing this guy over and over and over again. And I have no idea why. They have been nerfing this character for no reason. No reason. They destroyed his damage, basically. His damage used to be really good in Season 1. Because Season 1 Rugi was probably an A+, or maybe high A-. But his damage was really good. Hit like a truck. His damage is so much worse now. And his neutral is not that good. He doesn't have amazing frames. His frames aren't that good. He doesn't have good poking. His 12 frame also, getting that nerf going from 12 frames to 14 frames, was also a big nerf to him. His damage, again, like I said, was destroyed. They did buff 2A plus B though. That's good, but that's not enough. His stances got a little bit weaker. That GI that he had from Relic Stance, I think is what it's called, got a huge damage nerf. So previously, that move, some people were scared to attack Rugi in that stance because of that GI. It did so much damage. But now they nerfed the damage. So it's much weaker now. And he does have some good 50-50 mix-ups. His mix-ups are good. And he does have a 3B lethal hit when they're crouching. That's very powerful. But the reason why that's a thing is because his lows are so punishable outside of his generic 2K. Every other low he has is either super punishable or super slow. So, like, if Mitsurugi did not have that 3B lethal hit, I would argue him being worse than Maxi. He just lacks an identity right now. That's my biggest problem with Rugi. He just doesn't have an identity. They just keep nerfing him. So what I really want them to do is stop nerfing him and buff him in an area where he's kind of lacking. Maybe some of his frames or something. Just buff that. Because this character right now is terrible. Awful. He's still usable, but just super underpowered compared to everyone else. Super underpowered. Now, he did get a new way to get into Shura Blade with Mist 6B, but that's not enough, people. Come on, that ain't enough to fix him. And then finally, I feel the worst character in the game right now, Maxi. Now, Maxi can be very annoying to fight. He's kind of like Talon in a way where he's very tricky. He's one of the trickiest characters in the whole game. He has some decent mix-ups, some kind of fake pressure. He has some pretty decent auto GIs. But the problem with Maxi is in Season 1, you could basically swat him out of almost anything if he didn't do the guard impact. But if the opponent didn't ever guard impact it and just mashed with Maxi, you could low him to death. You could low him to death in Season 1. He was trash in Season 1. So for Season 2, what did they do? They gave him Heaven's Guard. So you couldn't low him to death anymore. And if you did it, he would get a resist impact and get a lethal hit on you for a full combo. And they also gave him better frames in his stances, which was nice. And they gave him 7 rings, which basically, if you transitioned a certain amount of times, some of his key moves became break attacks and became plus on block, which was pretty good. So in Season 2, Maxi was usable. He was in, I would say, either B+ or A-. But in the update, in the patch, they just nerfed him. They nerfed Maxi. Why did they nerf Maxi? No idea. People kept complaining about Heaven's Guard. So guys, guess what they did to it? Nerfed. It now has a super tiny window now. And so it's much harder to use it. And not only that, but now you can re-GI the following hit after the Heaven's Guard. Why did they do this? I have no idea. So now Heaven's Guard is not worth the amount of meter you need for it. The move is basically trash now. So this Maxi, it's basically Season 1 Maxi all over again, but with just some better frames in his stances and 7 rings. And a super shitty Heaven's Guard. I think this character is trash right now. You can challenge him no matter what. His mix-ups aren't that scary. He's just overall not a very scary character. If you know the mix-ups and shit, this character is not good. And he's so vulnerable to backstep, sidestep. If you're moving away from him, This character's trash. He has no range, no neutral. His meter stuff isn't that good. His super is alright. His soul attack is whatever. And his soul charge is serviceable, but not that great. Yeah, this character sucks. And he has some awful matchups. He has some of the worst matchups. Some characters could just destroy Maxi. He's trash right now, guys. This character needs big buffs. Big buffs. That's all I gotta say with Maxi. He's trash. He's very hard to play. Ridiculously. But that's it. That's my Soul Calibur tier list. I know this video is going to be very long, but this is my personal opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed my opinions. Let me know about your opinions and arguments down in the comments. And yeah, that's it. So thank you everyone for stopping by. This is Falcon. Peace out, everyone.